Hello YouTube, welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Kevin and this is the Red Pilled American. So, a new pope has been selected yesterday. It's like yesterday late morning, or well, at least in United States time. It was yeah, and kind of a big deal. So, his name is Robert Prevost, but we now call him Pope Leo the 14th. And it was quite surprising. People were really concerned, whether you're, especially on the Catholic side, there was definitely a divide, especially among the more really traditional Catholics that were really wanting the church to go back to a more rightward direction, especially after the last one being Pope Francis being quite liberal compared to others, especially at least in the modern understanding. So, however, I will say that this guy definitely was a shocker. He definitely is not on everyone's radar. I think he definitely was a centrist. He's considered a centrist pope. I think the Vatican did a play it safe one and just picked someone that doesn't tick off either side, because if you pick someone too liberal, you're gonna annihilate the more Christian ones, the actual faithful ones, and then conservative ones. And if you nominated a too conservative ones, you'll annihilate the liberals. So they kind of went in the middle. However, and let's just face it, he seems to be ticking off both sides, because he's considered conservative on Christian doctrine, but he seems pretty liberal on his politics. I don't know. I guess I don't really care. I mean, I do care in a way, but at the same time, if he's entitled to have his opinion, but as long as he can kind of keep his politics more to himself and, just stick to the Bible and, focus on just moral clarity. And if he is going to call out people in regard to political leaders when they do wrong, he needs to be consistent and not just call out ones that he's more favorable to. So Francis was kind of biased in that in that circumstance. So yeah, that instance. So yes, but we need this pope needs to be less political, more focused on God. And the last one, God was not really the big focus, in my opinion. I'll show more sympathy. Francis might have been more centrist than we made him out to be, and I do think there might be people that really took him out of context a lot more, but he was still going in a more liberal direction, and it just confused a lot of people. So I think, some don't think this guy's going to be any better. He was really good friends of Francis, so the media loves that. They think he's going to be like Francis was, but and conservatives are really upset. The MAGA conservatives are really upset because his opinions on migration. He seems to be kind of like, yeah, let him in kind of a thing. And he made some past statements about Trump and Vance that they didn't like. So I don't know. I don't know. So. And I don't know, there's one specific scandal where he didn't handle an abuse case really well, so maybe has some skeletons in his closet there, but that one I don't know much about, so I guess I can't really give an opinion on that, I guess. But yeah, the sex abuse stuff needs to be taken care of. It just can't be allowed in the church. It just can't. And under the last one, Francis, they did not take child abuse well at all, and a lot of predators in the church, unfortunately, and that's just a sad event, and it's really hurt the image of the church and church. Now here's reason why. Now here's the thing. I'm going to give this guy a chance, okay? By the way, I am a Lutheran Christian, so I'm not exactly, he's not my pope as you would say, but I do care about this specific time now that I'm older and know about it now. And I am going to be paying a lot of attention more on what he says, and I'm going to be actually listening to his exact words and not what the mainstream media says, or even, unfortunately, even some Protestant newses, because they love to take the Catholics out of context, unfortunately. And so I'm going to try to really make sure we have clarity on what he actually says and stuff. So, and I'm going to try to confirm that, so especially Protestants can have some more clarity on what he actually says, because I don't think the media really tells the truth on that, on what he actually says. And so they misquote things. So now the media loves him, so that gives me a bad feeling. I really don't like when the media loves the Pope. They should hate the Pope, but they love him. But they're assuming he's going to be liberal. So, but there's some evidence that he may not be as bad, and especially on the issues they're hoping that he would support, he's not really for. And so you have some more liberal, progressive side of the Catholic Church, and even just progressives as a whole, that are actually not so happy with him either. And then there's MAGA. So in a way, if he's upsetting both sides, it's good, because again, if this is the vicar of Christ, it's not supposed to be political. It's supposed to be to the Bible. So, on what God's truth is. So he needs to call out, if he's going to call out wrong on both sides, he needs to do that. So, and I think there's too many people that are looking at this through a pure political lens, and even some Christians, and they're not looking at it through a Christian lens, and that needs to stop. You need to look at it through a Christian lens, and hopefully he does that. But I'm going to give him a chance to fail, I guess, before I can really answer if he's bad or not. He hasn't even been a pope a week yet. It's only been a day. So, I don't know. So here are some quotes that he has, that quotes that apparently come from him, that seems kind of based, and you would think, so that might give you some hope. And here's one. He says, and he's referencing to beliefs and practices in regards to same-sex partnerships and families. He says, Pope Leo, this came from him, Western culture often seeks to promote sympathy for beliefs and practices that contradict the gospel. For example, homosexual lifestyle and alternative families made up of the same-sex partners and their adopted children. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Another quote, we cannot build a just society if we discard the weakest, whether the child's in the womb or the elderly in the frailty, for they are both gifts from God. I think he's obviously referring to abortion, and I think he's referring to things like infanticide and assisted suicide, because that's being promoted in some of the Western places. I think Canada allows that. And some places, I think the Netherlands, some places in Europe are doing that. So yeah, he's definitely pro-life, and pro-life, which, that's kind of the bare minimum for a Catholic. You can't be a Catholic, let alone a Christian, being pro-abortion. It just can't. It just can't happen. Another quote, our task is to live in conformity with him, not shape the church in our own image. Yeah, the world's trying to change God's truth to fit in their image. And what's the first commandment? You must not make a graven image, which even means your own religion. You must love your God, that you not create your graven image. So, yeah, exactly. Another quote, he says, the promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist. So, anyway, so those are some quotes that he said. Again, those are, and he seems to be really less progressive on. Now, I don't know. he's kind of moderate. I think he's on the gay issue. He's kind of like, show some compassion because they're, it's disorderly. Love them, but he's not quite as openly about it, and he is definitely more on the traditional side when it comes to marriage and family values. So that is good. That is good. Um, he's against. Obviously, he opposes female deacons and priests. Um, he's a registered Republican. Okay, that really doesn't mean much, actually. It really doesn't. So people who think he's a Republican meaning doesn't mean much to me, but hopefully he's conservative on biblical. That's what I care about, not this political drama we see happening. But to some degree, Christians need to be involved in politics, but it needs to be done from a Christian and Christ level way that sticks to his truth, not this whatever the secular stuff we're seeing. He's also openly critical of the Western decline. Let me see. So, what else? Well, and in regards to his immigration stances, he must have said this yesterday or early today, but he said something about that, the migrant crisis is a problem all across the United States and the West, and it needs to be dealt with, but also encourages us, people and Christians, especially, to show them with respect. So he's saying have some compassion and mercy. So that's generally a really Catholic stance. I don't know if, helping the poor and has always been a Catholic thing. Jesus commands us to show mercy to people. So, so we do that. And he's right. But I think my only critical is it going to be from the church charity or from the government? There's a big difference in my honest, humble opinion on that. And, Francis seemed to want it to be through the government, and that's where my big problem was from him. So the right's trying to call him a globalist. I mean, because he's pro-immigration, I don't know. So, I don't know. So, anyway, that's kind of what you have here so far. No, again, he hasn't been even a pope, a full few days yet. So there's still a lot we're learning about him. And, maybe he'll be a disaster. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe he'll be good. And there might be some signs. And there's some conservative Catholics that I see, that I follow, that actually might be a little bit cautiously optimistic where we're going. So, the Catholics generally believe that the Holy Spirit works through to elect the next successor of Peter, St. Peter, since they believe St. Peter, every pope is the next St. Peter in a way, and I hope it's true. I hope they listen to him, the Holy Spirit, movement through there. Sometimes I'm cautious about that if they actually did, but then again, sometimes God does put just like he puts bad leaders, maybe he does put bad popes. Maybe maybe God used that as a way to kind of, really test the church if they're going to follow him or they're going to just follow a blind man, follow a man blindly, because some Catholics don't really know what Christianity is about and they just follow a man. However, you're only supposed to go against the Pope if he, goes contrary to Scripture and stuff. So, so I don't know. And I really don't think, and one of my biggest things that I like to see though, in regard this, and here, so that's the facts I know. Now, these are things I like to see. I know I'm kind of getting political, but these, I don't know if I consider them political, but here's the thing. He's going to talk about them one way or another, but this is what he needs to do. I agree with showing respect to immigrants. The church is called to do that. As for the government, Trump needs to do what he needs to be doing, and so are other countries, protect the people. And we need to protect the West from people who don't exactly share our values. So what I like him to talk about is sovereignty. That you need to have closed borders to have a true sovereignty. That's really all I want him to say on borders. And if he can say that, I can be happy. I can live with that. I agree. I mean, that will upset the globalists because they want open borders, and they're hoping that he would show for they will hope he will show for open borders and not closed borders at all. So we'll see. So that's what I would like to see from him. Another thing I like to see from him is, he needs to be a lot more clear on things he actually says. People say Francis took things way out of context, and maybe they did. Maybe in many cases they have, but he needs to be clearer on what he actually says, because words matter, and people take things out of context way too easily. So that's my opinion on that, on regards to that. So those are things I like to see. As for the moral issue, that's kind of a given. You guys kind of already know where I stand on traditional marriage and abortion and stuff. I'm conservative on those issues, so I'm biblical values on those. So those you don't really have to. Those are kind of a given. So, now that doesn't really need to be considered a list, but so that's what I have to say there on the Pope. There's, I guess, another fact. He's considered an Augustine Catholic, which that's another reason for hope, because I'm hearing that he tends to be, I think they tend to be a little more conservative historically, and I think they do a lot more mission stuff too, and those type of things. So another fact, he's from Chicago. I almost forgot he's an American. That's a thing that they said would never happen, but he's an American, and I guess his citizenship, he has dual citizenship in Peru, which is interesting because I'm actually part Peruvian, so that's kind of interesting. Family up there, so that's kind of interesting. So so he lived up there, and he was a bishop in Peru for a while, but he went to school here, and he was born and raised here though, or in his childhood. So he speaks 7 languages, a professor, again, a missionary in Peru for 10 plus years. I guess heritage-wise, he's actually French, Italian, and Spaniard, so he's kind of a little bit mixed. 7 languages, that's wow. That's wow. I can't even barely learn 1 language and learn 7. Man. I guess going back to the issue, they think he's a little bit too liberal on gun issues and a little bit on the environment. Well, I don't know. I guess if he's going to be liberal on something, I'd rather it be on guns and climate rather than things like, abortion and gay marriage. If we had to pick a liberal issue, I'm glad it's not on the moral values. So that's where I'm happy at. But I don't know. Hopefully on the climate stuff, he can, hopefully he'll have a more reasonable thing we can get behind, because we are to be good stewards of this world too. So, don't look at everything as being woke. Don't overuse that word either. So anyway, so that's all I have for the Pope. Now I'm going to give you some thoughts and some criticism I have of what people are saying, and especially from the people that are not exactly Catholic. Now, I'm Protestant. I'm a Lutheran Christian again, so I'm not a Catholic. But I'm kind of disappointed on the way Protestants are behaving in regards to this. I know, Pope Francis has not given the Catholic Church a good image, so in some ways they kind of wonder what Catholics really believe and stuff like that. But look, Catholics are Christians, okay? At least the teachings of Catholicism is Christian. There are Christians in the Catholic Church. Now, are there heretics in the Catholic Church? Yes. There are a lot of people that need to be excommunicated. Unfortunately, there's a lot of weak people that don't do that, so you have these, apostates, heretics and outright apostates that stay in here, and they kind of corrupt the church, and they kind of make the church as a whole look unserious, but it's not just the Catholic Church people, it's the Protestant churches too. There's the enemy is moving all over the place, trying to corrupt the church from within. The globalist plan is to destroy the church from within from both sides. In fact, they're probably more focused on Catholicism the most, because Catholicism is the one church that it's considered the oldest church in church, and they dating back to 2,000 years, and they they want to break it, and it's the only church that stood the test of time in regards to not changing due to times. Now, I know that people are like, what do you mean the Catholic Church has just changed its stance? Well, here's the thing. Francis gave an opinion that you don't have to agree with, and even at best it was probably taken out of context, but they never changed the doctrine of what they stand for. Now, so I don't know. So I don't know. So that's all I have to say on that. Again, I feel like there's people that want the Catholic Church to fail because they're Catholic. Let's be honest, some Protestants do too, some of them. Unfortunately, it's the ones online that speak loudly are the ones that I'm kind of disappointed in. And even though I'm Lutheran, it kind of pushes me more to Catholicism, the way some of them behave. And let's be honest, Catholics aren't always angels either. They can be quite snobs too. Let's face it, the history of Protestant and Catholic rivalry is bloody. They used to kill each other. Actually, it was so radical. Of course, it was in the name of God. It wasn't faith. We know they were doing it in the name of God, but still, it was bloody. So no, I don't like when Christians attack each other on either side. So if you're concerned, if you're a Protestant and you're concerned, pray. That's what the Catholics are encouraging everybody to do. Pray. So yeah, Catholic, Protestant, pray that the Holy Spirit will guide him to the truth. Now, truth. So again, so that's my thoughts, and then we need to be praying. And I'm going to be doing that. So, and like I said, I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to this than the last time, and I'm going to share a lot of videos on quotes that he says, and I'm going to make sure I get it from a right source and not just a source that we often know will probably take out of context. So, and another thing, something you need to know about Catholicism. I know Protestants say they worship Mary, they pray to the saints, they do that and all that. Let's face it, they do not worship the saints or pray to Mary. It just isn't true. It's not a Catholic teaching. Okay? They believe Mary's praying for them. They believe the saints are praying for them. They believe we're all praying for each other. They believe we can do that regardless if you're dead or alive, whether they're in heaven or here. So if you want to know about Catholicism, read it. There's a lot of good research you can look at if you want to know what they really believe. You may not agree with it. You can't fully get on board because it's just confusing. I get it. There's, confusing. But stop calling them a heretic church body. And don't say things you don't know anything about. That annoys me when people do that. So, and again, I have family that are both Protestant and Catholic. So I have, a little bit of a melting pot of both sides. So don't like when they attack each other. It's more personal to me. So anyway, that's all I have tonight. I don't know what you guys think, but let me know what you all think. What do you guys think of the new Pope? Do you agree with some things I said? Am I wrong on some things? But like I said, if you like this video, please like it. If you like this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Red Pilled American out.